Mr. Grothman from Wisconsin.
Yeah, first of all, we're going to give you a quick quiz because I used to collect stamps as a child. I know here we have, what is this person's ancestry? You put down Cape Verdean. I forget, where's Cape Verde?
I wish I knew. I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, we've got to look that up afterwards because
Yeah, question for the record.
Strange country to pick out of the blue, and this is one of the alternatives. We've covered on here already. You don't ask whether somebody's a citizen or not, correct?
If you're speaking of the decennial census, that's correct.
In any census?
We have 3 censuses. We have economic, government, and population.
Okay. When you don't use it, why don't you use it? It seems to me that's the first question I'd ask. Because if you're not here as a citizen, much more likely to be transient, much more likely to return home, that sort of thing, something I'd like to know. And if we have a difference on some of these questions, you know, education or bedrooms or whatever, I would kind of like to know how different our immigrants are living compared to the native born and how different our, you know, people who are not here legally are. Why, with all these obscure questions on here that I don't know what we're going to get out of, why do you leave that off again?
We do not leave the citizenship question off of the American Community Survey, which has education and housing and other types of many variables for
But
socioeconomic.
the general census every 10 years, you leave it off, right?
There's 10 questions for 10 minutes. We try to keep the respondent burden down to increase the level of participation.
That's why we don't ask people, because we're afraid a question, are you a citizen or are you not, is going to burden people and they're going to.
We're looking to ask whatever the Secretary of Commerce says should be on the questionnaire for the decennial census. And historically, we've used the 10 questions for quite a while now.
My colleague, clearly, I don't like to define people by where they're from, much less their race. But nevertheless, on here, we do have a question listing where your background is from, what country. That's where you picked up on this Cape Verde stuff. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Their person's ancestry or ethnic origin. I would think over time, most people have a little bit of several, you know, a little bit of Polish, a little bit of German, a little bit of Italian, maybe a little bit of African. What are we trying to get out of this? And given that I would think most Americans by now are a little bit of a variety of countries, how they're supposed to respond to that survey?
Thank you. What we're seeing is that as society evolves with technology and we have DNA testing and genealogical websites and things of that sort, people are becoming in society very interested in who they are and where they're from. And we're allowing, through a race ethnicity question, people to tell their stories.
But what does that mean? Say you know, I haven't taken one of these tests, but I know a lot of people who have. You know, it's not unusual to come up with 5 or 6 different things on the thing, right? I'm a little bit North African, I'm a little bit German, I'm a little bit English. What are we getting at there?
Information is power and allows us to serve communities better.
How would it affect any decision that government makes at all?
Oh, so for example, in South Texas, I'm familiar with the Rockport area. We have a vibrant Vietnamese community. Rather than simply saying there are Asians there and having and not knowing what type of questionnaires to put out, we would have
I think over time, as we have more intermarriage, people, I'm trying to think, I think all we're going to get out of here is trouble. But people do get these ancestry things, and they do take them out. I'm just afraid there are people in this society who are up to no good, who are trying to have people permanently defined by their ancestry. And then we have this rather odd question with rather obscure countries on here. Cape Verde, geez, I wish I had made, you know, asking on here. And I don't know why we're asking or how it would change public policy at all, other than for people who are fanatics about forever viewing people by where their great-great-grandparents came from. Like I said, what difference does it make if I'm 1/8 Polish. How is that ever going to come into play on anything?
Is that a question?
Yeah.
Allowing culture in the culture of the Polish and other cultures that are gathered can impact.
How do
it can impact how we approach
it might not
people.
be the culture, even that's a little bit discriminatory. I can imagine if I was born in Poland, I might carry some of the Polish culture. I would think the vast majority of people today, say in Wisconsin, a lot of Polish people probably immigrated here 6 generations ago. I don't think it has anything to do with anything. But nevertheless, it seems like we're trying to create this idea in which forever, like my colleague over here, forever identify by an ethnic group, which is kind of a dangerous thing, and people who want to, I think, destroy the country like this idea of forever people around hanging with this ethnic group. Even though until they took ancestry tests, they might even know they had any of this ethnic group in them. So it's just an odd question, a potentially dangerous question. So I'm going to ask you one more time, what difference does it make whether I'm Norwegian or Polish? What possible difference, or Mexican? I might not even know I was part of Mexican. What difference does it make? What are we getting?
It allows us to serve society better.
How?
Because it allows us to tailor programs, to tailor
If I'm
schooling,
1/8
education,
Mexican,
et cetera.
how does it affect anything the government does or should do?
We use that information in order to help determine how many different languages and the types of approaches we make
No,
to the
I'm
doorstep.
1/8 Mexican. I've never spoken a word of Spanish in my life. How?
We don't necessarily use the 1/8 Mexican, and we don't gather that granularity of information. We collect multiple races and ethnicities and use that information to tailor and fine-tune outreach for our censuses and surveys, but then communities can use that to better address their specific communities' concerns.
You're going down a dangerous path in which forever you want people identified where their ancestry comes from, even though it has nothing whatsoever to do with their life today, right? You know, if I'm 1/8 Norwegian and I never met my Norwegian great-grandma and I never knew a word of Norwegian, it has nothing to do with anything, but you're trying to make it part of something. Thank you very much, my
Yes, sir.
chairman. Thank you for indulging me.
Thank you.